Gabimaru is an infamous shinobi who was betrayed, captured, and framed by his own clan because he fell in love with the daughter of the chief and clapped her cheeks. He is eventually sentenced to death via an execution by this ugly, disgusting fatso. But no matter what this clown tries to do to him, my boy cannot be killed, as he's secretly an immortal demigod ninja, and the most powerful shinobi to ever exist who will continue to clap the baddest girls in the village. It all begins when we see Gabimaru, who is sitting down in the middle of the execution area. He's quiet and doesn't say a single word to anyone. As the executioner readies his sword, the fat man watches from above in the stands, very excited to see the end of the infamous Gabimaru. The executioner explains to us that he only uses the very sharpest of blades, as decapitation of the neck is actually quite a tricky task to do using a sword, and to do it in a single swipe is even harder. However, this guy tells the fat salad dodger not to worry about Gabimaru anymore, as he is known to handle this situation with just a single blow. After that, the man stands there with full confidence and prepares to swing. But when he does, absolutely nothing happens. The man is embarrassed, so he tries striking him over and over again, multiple times in a row. But still, he gets the same result and eventually his sword shatters into many pieces, shocking the swordsman and everybody else watching from the stands above. After failing to kill Gabimaru, he sits there in disappointment and feels exhausted by the fact that nothing can kill him. And right after, they send him back to his prison cell. Here we are introduced to a beautiful brown-haired lady named Sagiri, who is sitting inside the cells, guarding Gabimaru, and she introduces herself to him as just an ordinary journalist, who is here to document and record parts of his life before his execution. She starts asking him many questions to understand exactly why this motherfucker is so strong among the other ninjas. And here, Gabimaru reveals to her that ever since he was a young boy, all he did was train to become a first-class shinobi, and he was raised in the village of Iwagakure. And once you get chosen as a kid to train in that village, you have to complete some of the most brutal training techniques known to mankind. And if you fail this training, you either die, but if you succeed, you end up developing a superhuman body. Which is why the dumb swordsman couldn't cut through him like everybody else, as it is known that people from his particular village are all stronger than most ordinary shinobis. But because of this, Gabimaru explains how he now has no attachment to life, as he's slaughtered more people than you can count, but somehow he's the one who is still alive. After that, Sagiri asks him if he's also capable of performing ninjutsu, and Gabimaru answers that he can do it. So she proceeds to ask him why he didn't just use his overpowered ninjutsu style of fighting against all the dumb officials and easily escape. But he told her it's pointless using that against a bunch of idiots like them, and he actually finds it funny watching them trying so desperately to kill someone like him, and he can't wait to see what they will try to do next. The next day, the fat Shrek-looking dude has fully lost his mind, ordering the next execution method, and this time they decide to burn Gabimaru alive. They prepare a huge bonfire while Gabimaru is attached to a wooden pillar, and the fat ogre is excited to obliterate his enemy, once and for all, and be done with it. But after lighting the fire, we see Gabimaru surrounded by the tallest of flames. But after a few minutes of being burned, he suddenly opens his eyes and stares back at Mr. Fatty, and still doesn't die. After the second method fails, Gabimaru returns back to his cell unscathed and is completely fine. Here Sagiri appears again, and Gabimaru explains to her that he's not trying to resist and he actually has no intention of being immortal and wishes the execution methods would work. Sagiri talks with him while keeping her back turned, as Gabimaru's clothes were all burnt off, but she tells him she has no problem with keeping her back turned while she documents the important parts of his life, and asks him to answer all the questions. So Gabimaru tells her that when he was a baby, the village chief eliminated his entire family and then went on to adopt him. And ever since that day, he was designed and trained into becoming nothing else but a brain-dead shinobi, as the chief only taught him the ways of being a ninja and nothing else, so he had no normal childhood like any ordinary baby. Sagiri asks him about other dreams or passions he has, but Gabimaru tells her that he has none, since ninjas like him are only born to see, or deliver death to those that have been chosen for it. His mind can't even think of anything else other than his training or completing his missions given by the chief of the village, and that's what makes him who he is. After that, she asks him how a superhuman god-like shinobi like him even got captured in the first place. And that's when he explains to her that one night while out on a mission, he attempted to leave the village, which the chief had strictly forbidden any shinobi from leaving the village. However, he was then betrayed by his own cohorts and they framed him for this act. But he believes the chief set them up to it and told them to do this, since the reason for leaving the village had a big effect against the chief. So after hearing this, Sagiri asks him what the reason was on why he wanted to leave the village so badly. But before he could answer this question, the anime changes scenes to Gabimaru's third execution method, where we see him attached and tied up to a wooden pallet, and here we see some bulls tied to Gabimaru's legs. This is probably one of the worst ways to go out, and once again, the Beast Burger Man gets excited to see the end of Gabimaru, and apparently he still hasn't figured out that my boy is impossible to kill. So using this method, the bulls attached to his legs will run in the opposite direction, away from Gabimaru, and he will ultimately be split in half, as the bull's weight is over 6 times more heavier than a boy his size, making this the worst out of the 3 methods, which gets this dude at the edge of his seat. But as the bulls run away, as you probably guessed, the bulls pretty much died, and instead of breaking Gabimaru, the bulls ended up breaking their bones and collapsing due to the strength of Gabimaru's body. After seeing this, Sajiri steps outside in the execution site, and here she asks Gabimaru to answer the last question she had for him, which was why he wanted to leave the Iwagakure village that night. And here, Gabimaru tells Sagiri that the reason he left isn't actually all that interesting or relevant to her records. And right after, the dumb fat man tells her to stop asking him these silly questions, because all he wants to do is to make sure he ceases to exist. However, Sajiri tells the ogre that it is her job to record all this. So Gabimaru continues, and tells her that his reason for him trying to leave all starts back in the Iwagakure village. And he was known as the one at the top of the hierarchy of all ninjas, and much stronger than everyone else, even the chief. Due to this, he was very close to the chief, as he thought of Gabimaru as his prized possession. And he was always around him and up in his chambers all the time, so he ended up getting really close to the chief's daughter. When he started getting to know her, he found out she was extremely kind, gentle and innocent, and didn't have a single bad bone in her body. She was pretty much oblivious to the real world, as she was religious and didn't understand the life of a shinobi. And everything about her was the complete opposite to Gabimaru, making him feel a sense of weakness for the first time in his life, which he was taught them feelings were impossible for him to feel ever since he was a child. After getting closer with her, he eventually got the chance to sneak into her dorms at night and blew her back out. Gabimaru was very excited after this, so he ran back to the village and told all of his little ninja buddies about finally losing his V card. After getting a taste of her sushi roll, he immediately arranged to leave the village right away, and said goodbye to his entire clan, breaking all of his vows to spend the rest of his life with this brain-deady girl. But after plotting to leave with her, the chief found out about Gabimaru's plans, all due to some snitches in his own clan, as they were all jealous that they didn't get to clap the chief's daughter's cheeks too, and they didn't want Gabimaru to run off with the merchandise. So my dude was arrested with many ninjas surrounding him, along with his friends who snitched on him, laughing from above from the chief's roof. He hopes the Sagiri is satisfied with the record so far, and Sajiri gets extremely intrigued about Gabimaru at this point, and starts asking the officials if she can spend more time with him. However, later that night, one of the officials tells Sagiri that she should actually be afraid of being around Gabimaru, as he's not what she thinks he is. He goes on to say how Gabimaru actually has another nickname, and back in the day, he was actually known as Gabimaru the Hollow, as he feels nothing inside him like an empty void, and he is just a walking death machine ready to spill blood and is an emotionless being, without any heart or soul, just like the chief wanted him to be when he took him away from his parents. However, she begs to differ, and thinks Gabimaru does have some good in him, but the man tells her to stay away as no one will be able to protect her if he ever decides to unleash that side of him once again. He also adds that when Gabimaru was arrested, he eliminated 20 guards within the space of a few seconds just to try and get away. But she still isn't fazed by this, and wants to continue to record his story. After, she visits Gabimaru again, and asks him if he's so hollow, why did he kill 20 men when he can just stop resisting and finally let go? And he agrees with her, and doesn't know why he still resists, when all he wants to do is be free from this cursed life. The next day, the big Chungus guy tries another method of execution, and this time it was drenching Gabimaru in thick flammable black oil, and setting him alight. However, as you could already guess, this had zero effect on him once again. And when Gabimaru emerges from the flames, the oil and flames start to spit and flying off from his body, burning some of the guards standing in the area. And Big Chungus is furious once again, but still won't give up on finding a solution to end Gabimaru for good. After, Sagiri tells Chungus that all arrangements have been made, and that she finally knows how to end Gabimaru for good. After that, the Fat Lord takes Gabimaru to an underground tunnel, smiling as he thinks Gabimaru is finally going to die. When they finish escorting him to the room, he is met with Sagiri, who is sitting there waiting for him. It turns out Sagiri was not just a documenter, but she is a famous sword tester and executioner from the Yamada clan sent to find Gabimaru's weaknesses so she can eliminate him. Gabimaru realizes who this really is and starts imagining her cutting his head off, as he realizes she is actually the only one who might be capable of doing this. He panics and breaks his restraints while Sagiri tries taking him out, but Gabimaru dodges all of her attacks. However, he touches his neck to find a drop of blood, surprised to see how someone made him bleed for the first time in his life. Sagiri told him that she believes he is in fact a hollow boy, and that his story is true. However, one thing that he did lie about is wanting to die, because he's actually been lying about his wife, and the truth is that he actually loves her, and deep down he is a little simp. And the reason for him resisting the execution methods and avoiding death all this time is because he actually loves her, and she's the reason for his true purpose to live on. This makes Gabimaru extremely mad, as he rushes and grabs a sword to fight Sajiri. And as they touch blades, she asks why he's such an incel freak who keeps lying to himself. But Gabimaru responds saying that he's a hollow boy and that he will always be just a hollow boy and nothing like a regular human, and she could know nothing about the world he lives in. In a flashback, his wife hugs him and tells him he's not hollow inside, and that he can feel love and something beyond just being a heartless ninja, as he was the only one who didn't judge her, as she has a huge mark on her face. We learn that in their village, men are treated like soldiers but women are only there to bear children. The village chief wanted to teach his daughter a lesson, so he purposely burnt her face with a samurai sword and told her there is no other way of life for a woman except from this, and that she better remember that forever. But even so, she tells him that even after being marked, people's hearts don't die so easily, as she kisses Gabimaru. After making Gabimaru realize that he actually has a heart, he had thoughts of quitting being a ninja and to marry her and live a normal life. So he told the chief about this, which is the reason he got betrayed. Back in the present, Gabimaru continues to fight on, lashing out at her and giving back many attacks as Sajiri struggles to block all of his moves. He screams at Sajiri and tells her he can't ever live just a regular life and quit being a shinobi, but Sajiri stops fighting and screams out that he can be if he really wants to, revealing a pardon that would dismiss all his crimes and grant him the shogun's protection, but only under one condition, which is that he has to enter the underworld. This makes Gabimaru confused, as no one can enter the underworld unless you're dead. But Sajiri tells him about a beautiful land called Shinsenkyo, which has recently been rediscovered, and it is said that the elixir of life remains there, and this elixir grants immortality to those who possess it. So the shogun sent a search party out into the underworld and into the land of Shinsenkyo to find the elixir. However, when the boat came back, it was full of flowers, and upon digging through the flowers, they found dead bodies of the search party. They sent 5 more on this expedition, but none of them returned with the elixir or their life. After seeing this, the shogun leader learned what was happening to his men, so now he has started sending criminals to the underworld to retrieve the elixir, and anyone who is successful will be granted an official pardon forever and can live a life however they want. Sajiri reveals that she was one of the officials sent here to find criminals with an unusual desire to live, and to seek only the greatest shinobis with the most relentless skills. She is betting on him to be the one to find the elixir, but he will be sent to that strange world, and will have to take on the unknown enemies of the underworld, while also challenging other criminals sent to that island to find the elixir before them to win the prize from the shogun leader, being the pardon and the only thing that will set him free. Sajiri adds that his beloved wife is also waiting for him, and as soon as she heard about his arrest, she immediately left the village in some haste, and confined herself in a place that not many people know of. However, Sajiri knows the location of his wife right now, and she's patiently waiting for him to return. So after hearing this, Gabimaru accepts the mission to find the immortality elixir of life just to return back into his wife's arms once and for all, which is all he's ever wanted since he was captured in the first place. But the big Chungus tells Sajiri that there's no way he's going to let Gabimaru live, and that someone else can go find the elixir instead, as he still wants Gabimaru's head on a spike. So this is when Gabimaru tells Sajiri if she really wanted to see him do ninjutsu, and after Gabimaru creates elemental flames all around his body of red and blue fire, and within a few milliseconds all the guards were dead on the floor, and Sajiri had captured Chungus, who finally surrenders, calling Gabimaru a god and pleads for his life. After, Gabimaru asks what he needs to do to enter the underworld and find the stupid elixir, but right then, we get to see in a flashback, Sajiri watches her father perform an execution so perfectly that the man didn't even realize he had been beheaded. Sajiri made it her goal to replicate his skill, and when it was her turn to perform executions, she managed to do it well. However, she imagines the people she killed haunting her. A man named Izan observes that there is doubt and fear in her swordsmanship, causing people to die painful deaths. He tells Sajiri to look at the reflection on her sword, saying the truth is reflected in the blade. In the present, Sajiri blindfolds Gabimaru and makes him join the other criminals, as they are informed the shogun is sitting before them. They are given orders to travel to Shinsenkyo and return with the elixir of life, with the promise that the successful criminal will be pardoned. This changes the atmosphere as the criminals realize they can earn their freedom. The speaker describes the island, but the criminals interrupt, saying it sounds like a fairy tale. They are then ordered to remove their masks and see a man with flowers growing out of his body. It's revealed that this man returned alive from the expedition, but he had lumps all over his body that started blooming. The criminals begin to have doubts, not wanting to risk their lives in the expedition. But an official reminds them they have all been sentenced to death, so going to the island is considered a generous offer. A criminal named Nurugai notices that they don't know anything about the island, wondering if the elixir is even there. An official tells them they are free to drop out, so one of the men tries to leave, but he is immediately executed. The official reveals that they will have the Yamada clan serve as monitors while on the island, so if they try anything funny, they will be killed on the spot. He warns the criminals not to try anything, and he adds that if their monitors die for whatever reason, they will be executed. The shogun whispers something to an official's ear, and the official tells them that their numbers need to be reduced before going to the island because they don't have the resources to accommodate all of them. The criminals are confused, but a man named Chobe calls them idiots as he chokes another criminal to death. He points out that the officials are doing nothing, so he concludes that the officials want them to kill each other. The official confirms this, so they start killing each other as the shogun watches on with excitement. But the official thinks this is just pointless violence. The shogun asks about the criminals with the most exceptional skills, and the official tells him about them, saying the most notable among them is Gabimaru. They observe Gabimaru, but he doesn't appear to be moving, as no one is even attacking him. Izan notices how the violence is making Sajiri overwhelmed, telling her it will be even more brutal on the island, so he questions her capabilities, thinking she isn't suited for the job. Izan tells her she should just live quietly in her mansion, and Sajiri tells him that she would have if she could. In a flashback, we see Sajiri running away from some bullies as they make fun of her family for making a living through people's deaths. One day she picks up a sword, and she sees the reflection on the sword, allowing her to see the spirits haunting it. Back in the present, some of the criminals think about escaping, so they charge at Sajiri, seeing her as an easy target. Izan wonders if she can handle them, but Sajiri has accepted her fate as an executioner, and she easily takes them all out. But she starts to feel haunted by her victims again. But the spirits disappear as Gabimaru says that killing people is never okay. Gabimaru asks if there is another way to choose who's going on the expedition because not everyone wants to kill people. An official threatens him, telling him to watch his tongue as he orders a criminal to attack him. The man lifts a stone and throws it at him, but Gabimaru easily dodges it. Gabimaru wants to talk it out, but the criminal refuses, leaving him with no choice but to kill the man because he needs to survive. He approaches the man, saying he's about to be burdened, as he starts taking out the other criminals with such brutality that even the shogun is unsettled. Sajiri looks at his reflection through her sword, and she sees countless souls around him, but they don't seem to disturb him. This makes Sajiri realize that what she needs is not to get rid of her fear and doubt, but the strength to take on the burdens of the lives she took. The officials stop them, telling them they will be joining the expedition, and we learn that the 10 criminals who will be joining the expedition are the same criminals who have exceptional skills. They all board a ship, and we see the island as they slowly arrive. Gabimaru remembers when the village chief was pierced by multiple weapons, but he didn't fall, proving his immortality, and it was apparently due to a medicine he acquired from a land across the sea. They arrive at Shinsenkaya where Gabimaru tells Sajiri that the elixir of life is real, but he isn't sure if they will find it on this island. They explore the island as Sajiri comments on how beautiful the place is, but Gabimaru thinks it's creepy, saying they don't know what's out there. He breaks his restraints, and Sajiri tells him that he's not allowed to do that, but Gabimaru tells her to let it slide, explaining how they only have a strange drawing as a clue and their food is only good for 3 days. However, Sajiri threatens to kill him, telling him to bind his hands. As she explains, she is not his friend, and her role is his executioner, so he reluctantly complies as he lets Sajiri tie his hands. He suddenly gets hit by a giant steel ball, blowing him away. The ball returns to a criminal named Keian who thinks he just got rid of his target. But Gabimaru gets back up, cracking his neck as he admits that it got dislocated. Sajiri explains Keian is a warrior monk who steals the weapons of the warriors he has killed. But Gabimaru points out that Keian's hands aren't restrained. So, Sajiri asks Keian's executioner, Kisho, about this. Kisho says they can just tie their hands on the way back, telling Sajiri she's the lowest ranked executioner because she's too rigid. Keian displays his other weapons, wanting to test them out on Gabimaru. However, Gabimaru doesn't want to waste time fighting, saying that the others will get ahead of them. But Keian says that since they have no leads, he is better off taking out the other criminals and then taking his time to look for the elixir. So Gabimaru realizes he has no choice but to fight. Keian charges at him, but Sajiri asks him to bind his hands. Keian smashes his head, but the mace shatters, so he brings out other weapons to attack Gabimaru, who continues to tie his hands while he endures the blows. Breaking Keian's weapons, Keian thrusts his spirit at Gabimaru, who has just finished tying his hands. Gabimaru breaks the spear, launching Keian into the air, and as his weapons fall toward Gabimaru, Gabimaru kicks one of the spears at Keian, stabbing him in the chest. Sajiri thinks Gabimaru won with a single attack, but Keian gets back up, saying they're just getting started. However, he easily gets defeated by Gabimaru, who uses his own weapons against him. Gabimaru wants to continue their quest as Kisho beheads KN, and he heads back to the ship. Gabimaru wonders if he wants to fight, but Kisho says he is just doing his job and doesn't take any sides, even considering himself lucky for getting out so quickly. Reminding Sajiri she will be spending time with a dangerous criminal, Kisho tells them about how the other criminals are breaking the rules, and he predicts they will continue to kill each other until there is only one left standing. We see Izan tying their boat to a tree, when his criminal, Rokuroda, gets hungry and suddenly attacks him. He tries to defend himself, but his sword is shattered, and he ends up being eaten by Rokuroda. Some of the other criminals meet their end as Kisho explains that more will be added since they are expendable, revealing that they are recruiting people from Gabimaru's village as well as the Amada clan. As he leaves, Kisho warns Sajiri not to let her guard down, and she starts to wonder about Gabimaru's true character. At that moment, Gabimaru suddenly attacks her, but she manages to push him back. Gabimaru recalls when the chief killed his parents because they wanted to leave the village. The chief taught Gabimaru that emotions make a person weak and he won't be able to protect anything unless he is strong. He exchanges blows with Sajiri as he thinks about this, and Sajiri informs him that killing her is against the rules. But Gabimaru says he needs to find the elixir before the other shinobis from his village arrive, seeing her as a hindrance. He continues to attack Sajiri, who thinks he should be executed immediately, but she finds herself hesitating. And we learn that Gabimaru has the same problem, not knowing why he can't bring himself to kill her. Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him to follow his emotions, and we learn that he has been experiencing emotions since he met his wife, which got in the way during his missions. Gabimaru sees an opening, but he stops as he is about to deal the finishing blow, so he gets pushed back. He sees this as a weakness, thinking he won't be able to survive, so he continues his assault as he thinks about the chief's advice, making him hollow again. He breaks Sajiri's sword, and he is about to cut her down, but she uses her sheath to defend herself. Gabimaru eventually comes out on top, ready to deal the finishing blow, but he struggles to finish her off, admitting he still has emotions left. And he starts crying, thinking he has become weak. Sajiri tells him it's not weakness but the seed of strength, as she believes that not fleeing from his emotions is strength. She decides to overlook his behavior, wanting to see him face his emotions and reclaim his life, as she tells him he is no longer his old self. Meanwhile, the criminal Tamiya realizes his hand has been stung by a butterfly, and he recalls what happened to the man who returned from the expedition. So he quickly slices his hand off and kills the insect. His executioner, Fuchi, is confused by this, but Tamiya shows him the human-faced butterfly, saying that it's not from their world. At that moment, his severed hand transforms into flowers, and more creatures appear around them, including a giant abomination. Meanwhile, Gabimaru and Sajiri are also surrounded, with a fish monster standing before them, so he tells her to stand back, preparing to take it on. In a flashback, we learn that Tamiya was an extremely skilled swordsman, and he agreed to become the officer of a certain lord. One day, he has a drink with his lord, but he hears a comment that makes him upset, so he ends up destroying the mansion's gate and killing his lord, which made an entire clan hunt him down, resulting in his arrest. We see Tamiya with Fuchi as they arrive on the island, and Tamiya notices how his executioner has tools for deceptions. Fuchi explains that the Yamada clan also dissects bodies to help produce effective medicines. The fish creature uses its arms to attack Gabimaru, but he easily evades and kicks the monster's head. However, the creature grabs onto his foot and slams him against the ground. Gabimaru quickly recovers as he remembers the shinobi rule, which states that he must not fight an unknown enemy. He thinks about retreating, but the creature suddenly restrains him, smashing his body against the trees before throwing him away. Sajiri is surprised he is actually injured, and they think they should run away, but they soon realize there are giants approaching them from all directions. Wanting to survive, Gabimaru goes berserk, using his ninjutsu to destroy a giant's head. He goes on to butcher the other giants while Sajiri watches in awe, thinking about how dangerous the job is. A giant suddenly attacks her from behind, which she evades, but centipede monsters grab onto her, restricting her movement as the giant prepares to strike. Gabimaru cuts the giant's arm, allowing him to save Sajiri, but this snaps him out of his berserk state. The fish monster is about to attack them, but the executioner named Genji arrives and takes out the creature. A ninja named Yuzuri joins them, calling Gabimaru impressive for killing all the monsters by himself. Gabimaru questions her motives as she approaches him, trying to seduce him into working with her, but he ends up restraining her, saying her seduction won't work on him. Yuzuri claims she just wanted to try it out, but she is serious about working together. Sajiri wonders why she has two executioners with her, so Genji explains how he was assigned to another criminal who was killed by her. So because of this, he concluded that one executioner may not be able to control her, so he decided to join them. However, Gabimaru finds the explanation weird, so they conclude that he must have been seduced. The other executioner introduces himself as Santa, and Yuzuri tells them about the creatures in the area, saying finding the elixir is important, but they can't charge him without a plan. Sajiri tells him there is no problem with working together and Yuzuri hugs him. But Gabimaru restrains her, telling her he can't trust her. But she uses her legs to bring him closer, saying he doesn't need to trust her because they will eventually betray each other, as only one of them will be pardoned. So she suggests just using each other for the time being. Gabimaru backs off as he wonders how she can help him, and Yuzuri reveals she has plenty of information, telling them that the real danger on the island is the human face butterfly, which has hallucinogens and poison. She reveals how she got the information, saying she tested the bugs out on another criminal who she ended up killing. Senna tells them about the items the monsters are wearing, mentioning that they have Buddhist designs, which he finds strange. Yuzuri tells them there is still much they don't know, so they should work together to learn more. Gabimaru says he wants information, but he only agrees to fight together, not wanting to cooperate with her fully. Sajiri watches them as they interact, thinking about what she has done since arriving on the island. But she suddenly collapses. In a flashback, we see a man named Tama who is about to become an executioner, and Izan tells him he should take the final step by killing a criminal, thinking about which execution would be suitable. Tama says he has a request and he goes to his brother Chobe, telling him he knows how to make the magistrate's men stop pursuing them. Back in the present, the brothers are surprised to see 3 giant creatures standing before them. Chobe immediately attacks them as Tama reveals that his brother's strength is to quickly understand situations. We learn that the brothers lived in poverty after their parents died and they were taken by bandits. While with the bandits, Chobe somehow controlled the situation, and he eventually became the bandit king. He cuts down a giant, but his knife breaks, so he runs away with Tama. But a giant grabs onto Tama's hair as Chobe returns with an axe. Chobe gets hit in the face by a staff, and the monster tells them that murder is a sin. The other creatures start talking to them, which makes Tama believe they're in hell. But Chobe starts cutting through the creatures, and he manages to defeat all of them. Chobe thinks that the elixir must be real since there are monsters protecting it, so he decides to take out everyone on the island and take the elixir for themselves. Sajiri regains consciousness, and Genji tells them they're safe in a cavern. He informs Sajiri she was poisoned by the butterfly's scales, but she immediately gets back up, wanting to monitor Mario. She leaves the cavern and she sees Gabimaru preparing dinner while Sina fixes their torn clothes. While having dinner, Gabimaru reveals he scouted the island and he learned something about the flora, saying he found several flowers resembling the man they were shown, which makes them conclude that the people who went missing have now turned into plants on the island. Gabimaru wasn't able to find anything that looks like the clue they were given, but Santa suggests they shouldn't rely too much on the illustration, since the officials don't know much about the island. Sajiri notices how the creatures on the island have animal parts stacked on top of humanoid forms, and Sina adds that they wear items that seem religious. He says they're like malformed gods, which seems to be the theme for the island and the creatures. Later that day, Genji tells Sajiri to return to the mainland because he believes she isn't strong enough to survive. However, Sena thinks the return trip wouldn't be so easy, since most people don't return from the island. We meet the executioner Tenza as he tries to escape the island with Nurugai. They eventually stumble upon a ship, but as they get closer, they realize that the ship has been destroyed along with the other ships around. Tenza speculates the ships all attempted to leave the island, and they see creatures moving around them. So Tenza pulls out his sword, but the sea monster attacks them, forcing them to jump out of their boat. They land on a shipwreck, and more tentacles appear around them. Tenza slices through them as they search for a usable ship, and Nurugai wonders if she is being punished. Nurugai remembers when she led a group of samurai to her village, and they ended up wiping her whole village out. But the men spared her, planning to use her to find the other villages. While she was locked up, Tenza found her, knowing she was innocent, and showed her the pardon offer. As they run, they come across Kisho, who is now transforming into flowers. Tenza tries to talk to him, but a tentacle cuts him in half. Kisho's body reminds Nurugai about her dead grandfather, and this makes her fall to her knees, telling Tenza to escape without her, as she blames herself for the deaths of everyone in her village. Tenza defends her from the tentacles, asking her if she wants to die. Nurugai realizes she wants to survive, so Tenza gives her a sword. They fight through the tentacles together, allowing them to reach a boat, which they use to return to the island. They realize that the currents prevent them from escaping, and sea monsters seem to surround the island, so they decide they will need to gather allies for the return trip. Meanwhile, Genji tells Sajiri to sail home, but Santa thinks she could help if Gabimaru needs to be stopped, saying he seems to have changed after spending time with her. That evening, she goes to Gabimaru, who asks if she's feeling better because he knows the wound he gave her made the insect's poison act quickly. He reveals how Sajiri calmed him down, and Gabimaru claims she is stronger than him, but he doesn't know how to explain it to her. He tells her that experience can help her realize her strength. The next day, Sajiri tells Genji she won't be leaving, so he pulls out his sword, trying to scare her, but she instantly disarms him. Genji retrieves his sword as he reprimands her, but Rokuroda suddenly appears behind him and blows him away. As a child, Rokuroda had an insatiable appetite and loved playing with things using his hands. However, he eventually went on a frenzy and ate everyone from his village. Rokuroda targets Sajiri, but Gabimaru kicks him away. Rokuroda gets back up, and Gabimaru sees him as a dangerous man, wondering how his kick didn't hurt him. He remembers how he was trained to analyze the enemy's abilities, so he decides to observe his opponent before making a move. Rokuroda uproots a tree and throws it at him. As Gabimaru dodges it, he thinks Rokuroda is stronger than him, so he asks for Yuzuri's help, but she reminds him she's only responsible for gathering information. As she starts cheering for him, Rokuroda wildly swings at him. Gabimaru evades the attacks, thinking he could die in a single hit. Gabimaru tries launching rocks at his enemy, but it seems to have no effect at all. Seeing this, he takes out his sash, using ninjutsu to make it as hard as steel, but even this proves ineffective. He uses his other techniques, but nothing works, and he starts to wonder how he can take out his opponent. Sajiri tries to treat Genji's wounds, but he tells her to stop, knowing he can't be saved. He tells her to run, but she refuses to leave him, telling him not to give up. This makes Genji realize she has chosen her way of life, so he gives her his sword, explaining how a warrior's sword is his soul. He wants her to kill Rokuroda as he starts seeing her as one of them. Gabimaru is now running out of options, thinking the only way to beat him is to use his fire technique. But he knows close combat is too dangerous. But Rokuroda's finger is suddenly cut off as Sajiri joins the fight. Gabimaru finds her timing impeccable, and he knows they need to decapitate him. But he's too tall, so he tells Sajiri to go for the leg. As Gabimaru deflects Rokuroda's attack, Sajiri strikes his leg, but it does nothing to him, and she falls back as he swings at her. Sajiri realizes she's screwed up because she was too aggressive, so she lets go of her emotions. Rokuroda strikes, and Gabimaru manages to evade his attack, but he realizes his leg has been sprained. Sajiri strikes Rokuroda's arm, but it does nothing, and she points out that she needs to strike the gaps between his bones to land a decisive blow, so she needs him to be hunched over for her to hit him. Rokuroda suddenly cries, letting out a powerful scream which overwhelms their senses. He strikes Gabimaru before he can even react, slamming him against the ground. Gabimaru survives this attack but falls to his knees, coughing up blood. Rokuroda is about to deal the finishing blow, but Sajiri gets in the way. At that moment, she achieves a serene state of mind, easily deflecting the attack, which surprises everyone. As she fights, Santa reveals that Sajiri is the lowest ranked executioner because, as a woman, she is not suitable to lead their clan. However, in terms of pure skill, the executioners know she is better than most of them. Rokuroda loses his footing, and Sajiri is about to finish him off, but he jumps away. Gabimaru comes up with an idea, using fire ninjutsu to throw flaming projectiles, burning everything around them. Yuzuri runs away, knowing Gabimaru is planning to suffocate Rokuroda with the smoke. The plan works as Rokuroda gets down on his knees, struggling to breathe, and Sajiri prepares to deal the finishing blow. He tries to strike back, but Gabimaru pushes his hand against the ground, and Sajiri manages to execute him. However, the look in his eyes makes Sajiri realize that he was living a misunderstood life, not knowing how strong he was, so he accidentally killed people when he just wanted to play with them. Gabimaru gets worried the monsters might be drawn to the fire, so they leave the area, leaving behind Genji's remains. They hide as giants make their way to the area, and Gabimaru suggests going in the direction where the monsters came from, thinking it could lead them to the elixir. They catch up to Yuzuri and Santa, and they are all surprised to see a village on the island. Meanwhile, the brothers go deeper into the forest, where they see two beings making out. Shob wonders if they are monsters, and the yellow one named Jufa becomes angry at them for spoiling the mood. Gabimaru wonders if the residents of the island are friends or foes. He sees a girl spying on them, so he runs after her. He catches up to her, removing her hood, and he is surprised to see she is a child. A tree monster suddenly takes a swing at him, and the girl continues to run away. Gabimaru chases after her, thinking she knows something about the island. He dodges the tree's attack and kicks it away, while Sajiri rushes after him, leading their companions to deal with the creature. Yuzuri removes Santa's glasses, saying she doesn't want them to see her techniques, as she drinks from a cup, causing strange liquid to come out of her body. Gabimaru catches up to the girl, grabbing onto her hand, but the girl throws him to the ground, which surprises him because a child shouldn't be able to perform such a move on him. Sajiri runs after the girl, telling her they just want to talk, and this causes her to stop, letting Sajiri catch up to her. The girl suddenly tries to punch her, but Gabimaru blocks the attack. He notes that the girl's strength is on another level, as the blow causes him to take a few steps back. Gabimaru tells her he's in a desperate situation as he grabs onto some vines, wrapping them around the girl, and suspending her in midair. The girl starts crying, so they release her and Sajiri calms her down. Yuzuri joins them, telling them she worked hard to defeat the creature. They gather around to discuss what to do next when the tree creature tells them to return the girl as it offers to take them to the village and tell them about the elixir. Yuzuri doesn't trust the creature, but it mentions they have a bath in their village, which instantly makes her change her mind. The creature takes them to the village, which looks like a ghost town, and it tells them it wasn't like this 1,000 years ago. It takes them to its house, where Yuzuri takes a bath with Sajiri while the monster gives the men some food. Gabimaru is suspicious, asking the monster about the island and the elixir. They gather around the food as the creature reveals that the island is called Kotaku, and it's an island where gods reside. The monster confirms that the elixir exists, telling them about the legend where it is known as Tan. Gabimaru asks about its location, so the monster draws 3 circles on the floor, saying they are now in the 2nd circle, and the elixir is somewhere at the center of the island, which is known as Horai. Gabimaru asks for proof that the elixir exists, and the creature tells them they won't doubt his story once they meet the Tensen, which are beautiful and immortal creatures. We see Chobe after he has cut Jufa in half, but the body regenerates and he is as good as new. The tree claims that the Tensen are completely on another level, explaining it has no reason to lie because they are all going to end up killed by the Tensen. The brothers are defeated by Jufa, and they are thrown into a pit filled with humans that have transformed into flowers. Toma helps his brother as he regains consciousness, and the tree reveals how the lives of those transformed into flowers become the source of Tan, and the people feel eternal bliss. It introduces itself as Hoko, and the girl is Mei, revealing they have been living on the island for centuries. After that, Gabimaru and Sajiri go to the bathroom, where they run into Mei. She cries at first, but Gabimaru says everyone just shares the bath in his village. Sajiri notices a huge scar on Mei's body, and Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him about the importance of getting proper rest as she helped him take a bath. He tells Mei not to be ashamed of her scars because the most beautiful woman he knows has a large scar, saying appearances don't matter. Sajiri is surprised hearing this. As they walk away, Gabimaru remembers his priorities, thinking he doesn't have time to sit around chatting. In a flashback, we see that Tenza was raised in the slums, and his parents never fed him well, so he had no choice but to steal from other people to survive. One day, he bumped into a group of swordsmen who looked down at him, so he ended up beating them up. But they were saved when an executioner named Shin interfered. Back in the present, Tenza walks around the shore with Murugai when a Tensen named Jujin suddenly approaches them. It transforms into a man and asks them about all the dead monsters, wondering if they are the ones responsible. They try to run away, but Jujin immediately catches up to them, blasting Tenza away with a pulse of energy. Murugai quickly backs away, making her way to the downed Tenza as Jujin walks toward her. Tenza suddenly slashes his eyes, but they instantly regenerate. Tenza tells Murugai they're going to escape as he unleashes a combo, slicing Jujin into pieces before giving the signal to run. As they run, Jujin blocks their path as he regenerates, but Shin suddenly throws his sword at Jujin, giving the duo time to escape. We learn that although Shin is blind, he can see through his other senses. They are able to get away, and we learn that Shin is Tenza's master. Shin says he was about to go home, but he couldn't find a current that leads out of the island. He says he eventually found a current that leads out, but he sensed a presence like nothing he had ever experienced before. Knowing there is only so much he can do alone, he decided to look for allies on the island. But he asks Tenza why he is helping Murugai as he reveals how he executed the criminal that tried to seduce him. Tenza says Murugai is innocent, reminding Shin how he took him in as he vouches for the girl. Shin decides to listen to him and takes them to the current that he found. But Jujin suddenly appears behind the duo. Shin dashes to save him, but his neck starts bleeding. Tenza tries to attack Jujin, unleashing a powerful flurry of slashes, but Jujin easily dodges it and counters with a flick of his finger, creating 4 holes in Tenza's body. We see Tenza and Shin in another flashback, as Shin reveals how he likes to help people during his spare time. Seeing potential in Tenza, he teaches him how to wield a sword, telling him his sword skills will help him protect someone he cares about. Tenza thinks he has no potential and decides to quit, but Shin tells him he can only quit once he lands a hit on him. As he leaves the dojo, Tenza encounters Izan, who wants to have a walk with him. Izan takes him to the cemetery, where he shows Tenza the grave of Shin's former junior named Teshin. Teshin lacked motivation like Tenza and decided to leave the dojo, but he lived a life of crime because he struggled to feed himself. In the end, Shin had to execute him, which made him even more passionate about helping others and becoming a mentor. Izan tells Tenza to land that blow on Shin, so he asks Shin to spar with him. Even though he keeps on losing, he refuses to give up. He eventually hits Shin but has already changed his mind, wanting to stay at the dojo with his master. Tenza knows he is about to die, but he has finally found something he wants to protect. He gets back up and starts pounding Zujin with his fists. He tries to do everything he can to help his companions escape, but Zujin unleashes another energy blast, blowing a hole in his stomach. He tries to tell his companions to escape, but he can't because his throat has been damaged. Shin seems to understand what he's saying, and he runs away with Nyurugai. Tenza continues to attack Zujin and fights to his last breath, giving the others time to escape. They mourn the death of Tenza, and Shin swears he will get revenge for him. Back at the village, Senta can't seem to make sense of the information they've gathered so far, and Sajiri tells him to take a break, but he refuses. That evening, Gabimaru remembers how it would be dangerous to act without a plan because there are still too many mysteries they need to solve. While Senta sleeps during his watch duty, Gabimaru leaves, trying to reach Horai. He eventually stops as he hears weird voices and reaches an area full of strange trees that appear to be prey. He goes in the direction they are facing and finds a giant door, which he thinks could lead to the elixir. Before he can open it, Zujin appears behind him, telling him to leave. Gabimaru asks Zujin if he can turn humans into elixirs, and Zujin suddenly dashes to attack him. Gabimaru swiftly responds, breaking his arm. He follows up with a powerful kick, breaking Zujin's neck, but it quickly snaps back into place. Gabimaru dodges Zujin's attacks and counters with a spinning kick, using his fire technique to light his head on fire. The fire consumes Zujin's body, and Gabimaru thinks he has secured victory. But Zujin suddenly punches him, sending him crashing against the wall. Gabimaru survives the attack, and they continue their battle. As he assesses the situation, wondering how he can defeat the Tenzin, he manages to land a kick, but it gives him a strange feeling. Zujin coughs up blood, and he wonders why the attack was successful. Zujin changes to his female form and starts attacking with a barrage of energy blasts. Gabimaru is brought to his knees, but he is determined to succeed in his mission no matter what. He tanks the blows as he dashes forward, allowing him to close the distance. They exchange blows, with neither of them backing down. Gabimaru plans to destroy Zujin faster than he can heal, and he actually manages to overpower the Tenzin, tearing his body apart. Zujin smiles as his body suddenly transforms into a giant flower monster, which uses a lightning spell, destroying the area around it. Gabimaru survives and tries to fight back, but he is no match for Zujin's lightning, and his body reaches its limit. The monster continues its assault, and he wakes up in a room with his wife, thinking he was just having a nightmare. He realizes he is hallucinating since he is about to die. The monster grabs onto him as it proceeds to squeeze him to death, but he remembers how he was trained to inflict as much damage as possible before dying. He unleashes fire from his body, burning the monster's arm before he falls to the ground. Zujin prepares to deal the finishing blow, but Mei appears and protects him with a shield, helping him escape. The next morning, the group searches for Gabimaru and Mei. Hoko reveals that there are 7 Tenzins, and we see them gathered in one location as they discuss how fierce the humans are. Jika blames Zujin for failing to take down the humans, blasting his head off as he comments on Zujin's ugly appearance, seeing how he's been using too much Tao, and mocks him for using his transformation against a human. The ruler of Kotaku, Rin, scolds Jika, telling him they are a family and he's the only one who can punish Zujin. Jika reports how he threw the 2 brothers into the pit, thinking they should have already turned into flowers, but Rin thinks that the humans are different from the ones they have dealt with before. We see that the brothers were able to escape from the pit. Zujin claims he was able to kill Gabimaru, and they all share a drink which helps Zujin recover his human form. According to legend, there was a hermit who mastered their art and became a god, split into 7 parts which are now known as the Tenzins. Hoko tells this story to everyone, saying he learned it back when he was a child. As he claims, he was once a little human. He reveals how everyone on the island were humans who lived long lives, but they realized that despite their extended lifespan, they started transforming into trees, and this caused them to slowly lose awareness. Before they completely lost it, they gathered at a particular location to ensure that their souls would reach Horai after death, which explains why there were trees praying close to Horai. He further explains that Horai is the final resting place of souls, but the Tenzins get to choose which souls will enter. Meanwhile, Gabimaru regains consciousness and recalls his encounter with Zujin, thinking there must be a way to defeat the Tenzin. He realizes they are not gods, so they can be killed, but he needs to have a plan, knowing he can't do it alone. Fuchai and Tamiya suddenly arrive, and Tamiya comments on his condition, wondering if it's time for him to die. They size each other up, thinking about fighting, but Fuchai tells Tamiya they should focus on gathering information as he pulls out his sword, wanting to get some answers from Gabimaru without killing him. Gabimaru bows before them as he proposes working together. Tamiya tests him by threatening to strike him down, but Gabimaru doesn't move, so they know he's not trying to fool them. Fuchai asks him why he wants to do this, so Gabimaru tells them about the Tenzins, and they are surprised to learn that such powerful creatures exist. Fuchai doesn't trust him, but Tamiya joins him, wanting to fight the Tenzins as he reveals how he isn't even the partner. We learn that Tamiya wants his name to go down in history by defeating the Tenzins, while Fuchai wants to dissect their remains. They decide to work together, and Gabimaru is about to give them more information when Mei wakes up. Gabimaru is surprised to see that Mei has grown up in such a short period. She calls out Gabimaru's name, and he realizes she can now talk. He thanks her for saving his life, asking her if she's like the Tensen. Elsewhere, Senta concludes that the religious system on the island is man-made. He thinks the creator of the island just wanted humans that transformed into flowers to return, and he sees it as a clue that could help them find the elixir and escape. Mei tells them about the Tao, which is the power that the Tensen use, but she can only offer a vague explanation because she still isn't used to speaking. On the other hand, Hoko explains that everything in the world is created by the flow of Tao, and it has something to do with the origin of the universe. Despite his explanation, the group still finds it difficult to understand. Nyorugai tries to ambush him, but he disarms her and makes her sheath her sword, saying he'll never teach her how to use it. She implores him to teach her because she doesn't want to watch her loved ones die. Hearing this, Shin tells her how everything in the world produces unique waves, which is what he uses to see the world around him. He goes on to explain how using the waves also improves one's physical capabilities, which is quite similar to how Hoko describes the benefits of mastering Tao. Shin states it's difficult to sense the waves since one must be in a balanced state of mind. He tells Nyorugai she isn't wielding the blade properly as he pulls out his sword, demonstrating how to wield it. At that moment, monsters appear around them, and Shin can sense their presence, so he takes them out one by one as he gives Nyorugai tips for fighting. A group of monsters makes their way to Gabimaru and his allies, so Tamiya springs into action, killing all the monsters at once. He lifts Mei up, telling her to teach him the power of Tao. As more monsters approach them, Gabimaru observes the monsters, and he sees a silhouette behind them. Meanwhile, two of the Tensens discuss how the humans merge into flowers after being thrown into the pit, allowing them to harvest tan efficiently. They think escaping the pit is unlikely because the humans that are transformed into flowers will stop them as they try to escape. But we see Chobe climbing up the pit as the transformed humans try to stop him. He powers through, allowing them to reach the surface. Chobe is determined to kill the Tensens, saying their weakness is their lower body as he points out that the Tensen started regenerating from its lower body. He suggests aiming for that area, and Toma is impressed by his brother's ability to read the situation. A monster suddenly appears, and it seems willing to talk, saying it received orders from the Tensen to investigate. He introduces himself as a Doshi, saying his colleagues are scouting the other humans on the island. He explains how Doshis are the right hand of the Tensen because they are capable of reason. The Doshi wants the brothers to return to the pit, so Chobe tries to kick it, but it dodges and counters with a punch. Chobe stands his ground, grabbing onto Doshi's arm and using his brute force to cut it off. The arm regrows, and the Doshi summons monsters to deal with them. Toma swiftly deals with the monsters as Chobe continues his fight with the Doshi. It senses his Tao as he attacks and comments how attacks from one who cannot use Tao are trivial because he can instantly regenerate from it. It sees a disturbance in Chobe's Tao, seeing it as a blind spot, and Chobe gets slashed, falling to the ground. The Doshi comments on how fragile humans are and plans to return him to the pit, but Chobe suddenly drives his fist through the monster's face and gets back up. The Doshi wonders how Chobe was able to regenerate, thinking he merged with the plants during his time in the pit. Chobe mentions how he sensed something from the Doshi, and he speculates that it's the key to defeating the Tensen. The Doshi attacks with the intent to kill, but Chobe is able to block the attack. The impact breaks his arms, but they quickly snap back into place. They continue to exchange blows, and Chobe manages to push the monster back as it notes that his Tao is continuously growing. Chobe doesn't know what's happening to him, and the monster suggests he is transforming into something that isn't human. However, he isn't bothered, saying, "Nothing in the world remains the same." We learned that when the brothers were taken by the bandits, they weren't convinced that the boys could join them because of their privileged upbringing, but Chobe cut his eye to persuade them, and this is how he was accepted into their group. Chobe charges at the Doshi as he endures the energy blasts, and manages to land a hit on its navel, which makes it cough up blood, confirming that the navel is its weak point. The Doshi jumps back, launching an energy blast, but Chobe manages to dodge it. He mentions how he can now see the energy around its body, which scares the Doshi, who calls on the monsters to help him. However, Tama has already defeated them. The monster gathers Tao energy using his hand, but Chobe stomps on it and replicates the technique, using it to punch a hole into the Doshi's stomach. He senses the Doshi's Tao and realizes it's on the brink of death, so he starts asking questions about the Tensen. At that moment, Tama becomes worried as he notices marks on Chobe's body, which look like vines and appear to be growing. We learn that the scar on Mei's body is similar. Tamiya tries to learn Tao while fighting, asking for Mei's advice, but she tells him he's doing it wrong. They observe Gabimaru as he fights, but Mei notes that he also doesn't get it. Fuji sees Mei as a mystery, wondering who she is. Gabimaru recalls how the girl used her power to save him, so he concludes she isn't a normal human. The Doshi leading the pack recognizes Mei, so he attacks Tamiya, who manages to block but isn't able to stop the monster from taking Mei. The Doshi says he has been looking for her, revealing how she was banished from the palace and disappeared from Horai. They were forbidden from searching for her, but the monster is happy to stumble upon her. Gabimaru asks what's going on, and the doshi says she doesn't belong with the humans, revealing she feeds off humans just like the Tensen. The monster implores Mei to return to Horai, but Mei looks at Gabimaru with a sad look on her face, so he goes to her, saying he doesn't want her to cry. The doshi's colleague appears, and together they summon centipedes and butterflies to their side. Tamiya tries to attack but is immediately stopped by a Tau attack, and the doshi proceeds to assault them. They all get pushed back. Gabimaru wonders why they want Mei, so the doshi explains how she helps them with their Tau training. They reveal there are 5 steps to mastering Tau, and the most important one requires a partner since it requires the participants to make love. The doshi explains how all things possess yin and yang energies, and both energies circulate when a male and female join together. The doshi wants Mei because she possesses the highest quality of yin energy, which can be made to circulate with their yang energy. They also reveal that Mei has the same origins as the Tensen, but she is inferior because she only possesses yin energy. This is the same reason why she was banished from the palace, relegating her to be a training partner for the doshis. They ask Mei to return, but Gabimaru becomes enraged, hearing this and refusing to let them have her. The doshis transform themselves, similar to how Zujin transformed into a flower monster. Tamiya struggles against a butterfly monster while Gabimaru uses his fire technique to destroy his opponent's arm. The monster fires a barrage of Tau attacks, which Gabimaru dodges even though he can't see them. The 2 warriors fall back as the butterflies pursue them, but Gabimaru uses a fire-breathing technique to create a firewall. Gabimaru notes how he can now sense Tau vaguely, but he wants to detect it more precisely. At that moment, Fuji tells them he has deciphered Mei's words, saying their minds must be both strong and weak to see Tau. Mei touches Gabimaru's hands, helping him sense his own Tau, as Fuji goes on to explain that Tau requires a specific state of mind. He tells Gabimaru to weaken his mind. This confuses him at first, but he remembers the moment he shared with Sajiri, and begins to grasp the concept. He prepares to face the monsters, as Mei comments that Gabimaru's Tau is enormous. The doshi attacks him with Tau blasts, but Gabimaru clearly sees them approaching, dodging all the attacks. He dashes toward the monster. As Gabimaru closes the distance, the doshi tries to punch him, but he evades, noting that he can now predict attacks by sensing the movement of one's Tau. The monster follows up, but Gabimaru touches its fist, causing its arm to break, and he lands a kick on both of the monsters. Tamiya doesn't want to be upstaged, so he charges at the centipede monster, slashing it in half while Gabimaru burns the butterfly doshi. Meanwhile, the others open the giant door, allowing them to enter Horai. But a Tensen named Mudon suddenly decapitates Hoko. The Tensen tells them they are the first humans to reach that place, and Yuzuri becomes scared, so she starts running away. However, Mudon instantly grabs onto her, saying he just wants to talk. Hoko tells them Mudon is a Tensen, and he reveals he has accelerated Hoko's transformation, so he will soon lose his awareness. Hoko wants his soul to be invited into Horai, but Mudon tells him their religion was a lie invented to maintain order on the island. He adds that the island is a place for conducting human experiments, as he shows them the Kyoshi, which are creatures he made using humans. Mudon says there is no elixir on the island, and he reveals that if a human consumes Tan, they will turn into a tree, just like Hoko and the other villagers. He tells them their journey has come to an end, telling them to go with him. However, Yuzuri uses her substitution jutsu, attacking him from behind and cutting off his head. They proceed to run away, thinking the threat has been dealt with, but he quickly regenerates, ordering the Kyoshi to attack. Yuzuri manages to evade. We learn that Yuzuri knows something similar to Tau, which is known as Kai, but she still hasn't mastered it. Mudon invites her to be his Tau training partner, as he uses a Tau attack to blast Sajiri away. As he explains his technique to Yuzuri, Senta cuts him up, and Yuzuri drinks a certain liquid, causing fluids to come out of her body. She reveals that her ninjutsu allows her to secrete the liquids she swallows, which happens to be snake poison. She uses her ability to bind Mudon, using the poison to burn his skin before slicing him into pieces. However, Mudon regenerates and comments on her abilities, seeing them as an application of Tau, but he says she still has room for improvement. Senta and Yuzuri strike at him, but he casually dodges their attacks before grabbing onto Yuzuri's leg and pushing Senta back. Hoko tells Sajiri about the Tensen's weakness as Mudon lectures Yuzuri about Tau, but Sajiri suddenly interrupts them, forcing him to jump away. Mudon notes that Sajiri has an average amount of Tau, thinking she can't do anything, but she launches her sword at his navel, and she cuts him open. We learn that the source of Tau is located at the navel, so it serves as the Tensen's weakness. However, Mudon is unaffected, saying Sajiri hasn't mastered Tau. But Sajiri remains calm and suddenly exudes Tau energy as she launches a slash that scratches Mudon's face. The wound doesn't regenerate, and we learn that Sajiri has been able to sense Tau all along. Mudon prepares to strike Sajiri, but Yuzuri restrains him, and Sajiri prepares to cut him down. He blows Sajiri away, ordering the Kyoshi to deal with Yuzuri, but Senta makes quick work of them. Sajiri continues to pursue Mudon, but he keeps dodging, so her allies cut off his limbs, giving her an opening. However, Mudon takes to the skies and bombs them with Tau attacks. As Sajiri takes cover, she realizes her body is reaching its limit. Yuzuri tells her not to give up, saying she can kill the Tensen. Yuzuri wraps snake poison around Mudon's leg, but he bombs her with Tau attacks, which she endures before slamming him into the ground. Mudon gets back up, but Senta stabs him from behind, restricting his movements as Sajiri goes in for the kill. She slices through his navel, making him fall to the ground. Mudon is defeated, but Sajiri despairs, knowing the elixir doesn't exist. In a flashback, we learn that Senta never wanted to be an executioner, but his family forced him into it. He studied religion to rationalize killing people, which he was praised for, allowing him to rank up. But after meeting Yuzuri, he became jealous of how free she is and started to admire her. Back in the present, Gabimaru stands above the remains of the Doshi, thinking he still needs to master the use of Tau. He asks Mei why she followed him, but blood suddenly oozes from his nose as he collapses. Yuzuri notices a number of strange flowers in their area. As she points them out, they suddenly attack her, but Sina shields her. He starts dreaming about drawing paintings of Yuzuri as he enters eternal bliss. The attack instantly transforms him into flowers, and a huge flower monster appears before them. Mudon is revealed to be still alive, and he undergoes his transformation. Mudon attacks them with his flowers, but Shin arrives and saves them just in time. He tells Nurugai to help them get away while he prepares to fight against Mudon. Recognizing him as a Tensen, he seems to have figured out Tau by sensing the waves of a creature, and he thinks he can kill Mudon by directly cutting his wave. Nurugai cuts the roots of the flowers, transforming Santa, and it seems to be able to slow his transformation. Sajiri wonders what they can do for him, and Yuzuri decides to try and heal him. Meanwhile, Shin fights against Mudon, and he even manages to knock him back. Yuzuri is surprised he is so strong, and Sajiri can see that Mudon isn't able to heal from Shin's attacks. But Shin took some damage in the exchange, and flowers started to grow on his body. He instantly cuts all of the flowers off, but Sajiri thinks he is losing too much blood. Sajiri wants to help him, so Nurugai suggests they all attack together, but Yuzuri claims she is all out of energy. Nurugai suddenly hugs her, and she hugs Sajiri as well. They wonder what she is doing. Nurugai says she used to do it to her grandfather to energize him, and she tried it on Shin as well, which seemed to help him recover. Sajiri thinks it has something to do with Tau, but they quickly go to help Shin. Sajiri tells him about the weak point in the navel, but Shin notes that Mudon has 2 navels, and just being scratched by his attack would be fatal. Sajiri reveals they covered themselves in Yuzuri's mucus, which should be able to prevent scratches and stop flowers from growing, so they plan to act as decoys for him. Mudon appears behind Nurugai, and Sajiri protects her, cutting down Mudon's vines. Shin is impressed at her ability to sense waves, and she is able to use it to predict the attacks. Shin prepares to attack, but Mudon starts blasting him with energy attacks. Sajiri and Nurugai cut down some of his vines, and Shin takes the chance to cut one of Mudon's legs. Mudon's regeneration becomes slower, and Sajiri thinks they could actually win, but she is reaching her limits. Mudon gets back up, unleashing his energy at all of them, but Shin continues to charge forward. Remembering how he was forced to let Tenza die, he refuses to run away again. Sajiri and Nurugai manage to pin Mudon's hands. Shin gathers all his power into his blade, but as he is about to strike, he wonders if the navel is really its weakness because he doesn't sense waves coming from that area. Time is running out, but Santa suddenly tells him the weakness is the center of the flower because that's where all the nutrients in a flower are located. Shin slashes it, allowing him to defeat Mudon just in time. Sajiri rushes to check up on Sina, but Yuzuri says he doesn't have much more time. She reveals she only has one more self, but she thinks it would be better used on Shin. Sajiri doesn't want to accept this, but Yuzuri says she is just a realist. Telling Sina he isn't going to make it, she tells him to be true to himself in his final moments, and Santa imagines being in the arms of the one he admired. After this, they wonder what they should do next, and Sajiri refuses to lose any more people, no longer seeing them as criminals and executioners. She decides to do everything she can so that they can all make it back alive. Meanwhile, Gabimaru wakes up, and he is instantly on edge. Tamiya tells him to relax, and Gabimaru wonders where they are. Fuji reveals they found a cave halfway up the valley, and it seems Gabimaru has lost his memory. Sajiri's group continues forward, and they are surprised to see a number of statues and temples. They decide to get some rest in one of the buildings, and Yuzuri finds them a change of clothes. Shin reviews the information that they have so far. He notes that Tau is a power that everyone possesses, and mastering it will allow a person to achieve superhuman abilities, but he says they have to be careful using it because Tau is life itself, and if they use too much, it could cause physical or mental changes or even affect memories and consciousness. In the worst case, overuse will likely lead to death. Yuzuri wonders what they should do since the elixir of life doesn't exist because the Shogun won't accept that. But Sajiri tells them how Gabimaru told her it exists since his village chief was actually immortal. However, Yuzuri thinks that might have just been an illusion because shinobi often use them to brainwash and control children when they are young, saying they did the same thing in her village. Yuzuri also finds the story about Gabimaru's wife strange because shinobi are just pawns. She thinks his wife might not even exist, and she could have been another one of the chief's illusions used to motivate him. We see Gabimaru has completely lost his memory, only remembering that he is Gabimaru the Hollow, and he plays along with the other three to get information about where he is. Mi asks if he is okay, and he says he is fine, but she can sense a disturbance in his towel. Sajiri keeps watch at night, and Shin joins her. She thinks about all the people they have lost, and she worries about Gabimaru. Shin wonders if she likes him, but Sajiri finds it all too sad that he is trying so hard to get back to his wife. But she might not even exist. Even though he's a killer, she doesn't think he is a bad person, so she hopes that he can be reunited with her. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss a future video. And until next time guys, take care.